Everyone, my name is Josh and welcome to WHIMS, and today I have a book review on The Running Grave by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling. Now, this particular book is the 7th instalment in J.K. Rowling's Cormoran Strike series, and it tells the story of retired civil servant by the name of Colin Edensor, who enlists the help of our favourite crime-fighting duo, Cormoran Strike and Robin Ellacott, to investigate, track down and try to bring back his son Colin Edensor, who's been indoctrinated into a religious organisation known as the Universal Humanitarian Church. But having him just basically disappear and having to infiltrate the cult is not enough for this particular duo to investigate. But when they find out their next member, by the name of Kevin Pirbright, is actually found dead in one of his own hotel rooms, at the start of the book, having supposedly died from a drug-related or suicide-related death, the duo decide to investigate, and this isn't just simply a case of going around and interviewing a few people who actually know about the church or was there when it was back during its heyday. This is actually a full-time gig where it actually requires infiltration from the part of one of the investigators. So Robin Ellacott actually decides to volunteer as the infiltrator to actually go inside the Universal Humanitarian Church, or the UHC, to try to get Will Enzer out. And let's just say Robin has her work cut out for her, because what she finds at the Universal Humanitarian Church once the indoctrination has successfully occurred and they're actually safely in the clutches of this particular cult is actually quite horrible and quite disgraceful and disgusting. So yes, this particular book was definitely a huge step up from the previous books, I feel like. This one definitely did take us into a lot of new interesting territory, and I feel like the stuff with our two main characters was also compelling as well. Robin has now just started to date a fellow CID officer known as Ryan Murphy, and they have a good relationship so far, but then things start to go a little bit haywire when she actually decides to infiltrate the church to find out information on the church and to try to get Will Enzer back. And Cormoran Strike gets involved in a really horrible dalliance with a girl by the name of Bijou Watkins, and she's awful, she's dreadful, and Strike shares this sentiment, but he goes on this particular outing in order to essentially get over Robin, because that's effectively what he comes to terms with throughout the course of this novel. He's fallen in love with Robin, but instead of actually dealing with it and dealing with the fact that, she's with someone else, he decides to go on the rebound and find someone who is just simply someone who he can just spend some time with. But then he finds out that that's a little bit too out of his element when he finds himself in another haywiring investigation, which involves blackmail and all sorts of other things. So this book, to say that this book has a lot going on is a bit of an understatement, because this book has so many layers to it. The central mystery involving the Universal Humanitarian Church is really brilliantly pitched at the start of the story. And one of the things that I really do like about J.K. Rowling's writing style, aside from the characters and the plots, is her world building. I feel like that's one of the more crucial elements to really praise here in regards to what she's able to do, especially with this book, because we've seen her do really successful world building in the past with the Harry Potter book series, and she's even done it in small increments in novels like The Casual Vacancy and The Ichabod, just to name a few. But what's very interesting is that J.K. Rowling, with each and every single book in the Cormoran Strike series, every single book is like a whole new story, except the only recurring thread is that Cormoran and Robin are investigating these crimes. And that's effectively what she's doing. She's writing these standalone mysteries with these recurring characters coming in and out every so often. And that's effectively what these entire book series are. In the case of The Running Grave, they are dealing with the matter of a cult, which seems to be originally operating from an outsider's point of view as a very progressive religious sect. And what the Universal Humanitarian Church's philosophy is that there is a common truth in all religions, and we need to, instead of treating them as separate cultures or in separate continents or even in separate places with separate people and different cultures and all sorts of different individuals, let's unite them and let's bring them together in the hope of healing the world effectively, stopping poverty, ending war, and, making the world a better place. So when they unite in this way, anyone who services the church and also leaves quite the impact, they start to transcend. When they die, when followers of the church die, they become what's known as prophets, which essentially are people who basically give themselves to the cause of the church, and they're remembered very highly for it. And one of the most noteworthy examples of a prophet in this particular organisation is known as the Drowned Prophet, which is the daughter Dayu Weiss, who is the daughter of the founders, Jonathan and his wife Mazu Weiss. Now, excuse me, this book does have a lot of layers, but I will say this book is part police procedural and part suspense thriller, because this book does involve Robin going undercover in a cult, and she basically has to create a persona entirely from scratch so that she can infiltrate this particular place to find Will and to find out information on the church. And it isn't just simply a case of her doing one overnight as well. Like, this isn't simply a case of her going into the Houses of Parliament anymore, like she was in Lethal White, where she was just going there for only 24 hours, 12 hours a day, where she'd be, during the day she'd be Venetia Hall, but during the night she'd be Robin Ellacott again. It's not like that at all. This is a 24-hour gig. And honestly, Robin Ellacott is one of my favourite characters after reading this book. Like, honestly, she is a absolute badass in regards to what she does, because honestly, the stuff that she does in this particular novel, I have to say, I wouldn't even be able to do it. The fact that she goes into this cult and she goes into this very dangerous territory really goes to show how brave she is, and it really goes to show that she really is absolutely made of iron in regards to what she's able to do as a character, because there's so many things that happen in this book that really are quite horrible and quite twisted. But what I really hate about this cult, but what I really do like as a construct for this cult, is there are a lot of parallels between real-life cults, in the sense that they're unable to come under any legal scrutiny, despite the fact that tons of people have come forward. There's all sorts of different mysteries and all sorts of different things that are going on with the cult that people have left insights there for. And there's so many other things as well that are a part of that. And of course, there is a bit of a history that is hinted at in a previous Strike novel. I think it was The Cuckoo's Calling, in which this was referenced, where Strike mentions being a part of a commune at one point while he was on his travels with his mother Leda and his half-sister Lucy. And it's even confirmed in this book that Lucy remembers something really horrific happening with Mazu Weiss and herself when she was a child. And that, to me, when I read that chapter, it was really quite sickening, quite horrible. So yes, this church needs to go down, and they need to go down hard. And Strike and Robin are going to be the ones to do it. Now, this particular book, like I said, what J.K. Rowling does with this book in terms of world building is absolutely masterful. The fact that she's able to basically write this very self-contained little universe in this detective story really is compelling. And that's kind of part of your job as a mystery writer, I think. Every mystery writer has to basically create an internalized world in this small little real world scenario. Like, if you look back at the works of Agatha Christie, or even the works of Ruth Rendell or P.D. James, or any other mystery writer that you can think of, they always have to create these very self-contained worlds, or these self-contained little industries where they can make up stuff and they can add characters and all sorts of different scenarios. Excuse me. And that's what I think is very wonderful about this book. But what I really love is it's still a bit of a murder mystery, even though technically we could make the argument, it's kind of like a Ruth Rendell suspense story, in the sense that it's not simply a simple matter of why done it, who done it, and how done it, and why done it. It's more a case of how will they get caught. But here's the thing, there still is a bit of a murder mystery, because there is a death that happens in this book that does actually kind of turn into the main driving force for this particular novel. And it's brilliantly done. And I do have to say, when I eventually came to that reveal, who the killer actually was, I was actually very excited. Like, I was actually very happy that that reveal happened, because it left a little bit of a surprise there as well. And it really kind of made you think, how can you do a murder mystery where it's to do with a cult? Because if the cult's the thing that's the problem, how are you going to make that suspenseful? Or how are you going to turn that into a mystery? Well, she was able to pull it off. And one of the things that I really did like about this book is, I think, even though I was quite sceptical of the premise at first, when I first heard it, I actually thought we are actually masters of the folk horror genre. I mean, this is something that's been a part of our DNA since the 1960s, 70s with the 1973 film The Wicker Man, and there's been all sorts of different versions of sort of like that cult narrative that we've pretty much had ever since, with all sorts of different films and TV shows. But we really are masters of that cult-like storytelling, and I really do think that's kind of, or folk horror, as Mark Gatiss would refer to it as. And I think that's really incredible. But what I really think is impressive is that J.K. Rowling manages to really make you care about every single thing that goes on in this particular cult, in regards to how people act and how people behave, and how these people are basically being brainwashed into thinking that this is the right thing to do, this is how to see things, this is how to look at things. But what's really kind of disgusting to me is that they pretend to be this very inclusive group of people, but in reality they are actually very kind of awful and horrendous, and they force people to do things that they don't want to do. The whole spirit bonding thing made me cringe, and it really kind of made me feel very uncomfortable. And also there's a chapter included in this book about a revelation which involves a character by the name of Kyle, and what the group actually say to him, which really broke my heart, and it actually made me really angry and sad and made me want to put the book down. And I did for a good portion of the time. Like I did for a while, I actually did throw the book away, or actually put the book back on the shelf and not read it for a couple of months because of that scene. So it was very heartbreaking, and it really did kind of make me feel really bad for Carl. And I wanted to have a scene where J.K. Rowling just said, Carl's okay, he's marrying Henry Worthington, whatever. And I thought that would have been great. That would have been a nice ending, but you can't wrap everything up so neatly. So I guess that's probably why she did it. But what I think is very important is that this book was really gripping. It was very suspenseful, and I really did find myself thinking, what's going to happen? How is this all going to tie together? And I think J.K. Rowling, if you happen to be watching this, you've done it beautifully, and it was a very good book. It was definitely a step up from The Ink Black Heart. Not to say that The Ink Black Heart was terrible, but I found myself kind of not really... When I got to the ending of The Ink Black Heart, I just thought, oh, really? That's the end? And it's like, I didn't really care as much as I thought I would. But what's very interesting about this book is I cared every single step of the way. I really wanted to know what was going to happen, who was going to be revealed. And I really did like it. I like the fact that she still managed to maintain that mystery element, even though technically it could be argued that we already know who the killer is when we first step into the story. J.K. Rowling does the very masterful thing that authors like Agatha Christie were able to do in their heyday. They were able to shuffle. She was able to shuffle those cards and really fool you in regards to how the culprit could be caught, and that's effectively what J.K. Rowling does with this book. She really makes you kind of think, oh, you think you know where you're going with this book, but then she'll throw a curveball at you, and I really do like that. I really do like the fact that she still keeps you on your toes as a reader. And this book was amazing. This is a 5-star book, and I was very pleased when I read it, because when I started reading it, I literally flew through it. I was literally halfway through the book within 2 days. That's how fast I read this book, and it really was quite shocking. But there were times when I was slowing down, because it's not because I'm, deliberately slowing down because I wasn't interested. It's because I'm just a genuinely slow reader anyway. So yeah, this book, by the time I got to about halfway through, it was only a couple of days, like only 3 or 4 days that I was halfway through this book. So that just really goes to show how powerful and how gripping this book was in terms of its writing. And I have to say, I can't wait for the next book. The countdown for the finale definitely has begun now, and I do feel like this book definitely is a massive step up from the previous book. And I don't think it's as good as Troubled Blood, but I do think it is a really good book. It really is engaging, it's compelling, it's got great world building. The mystery definitely was incredible, and of course the central relationship between Cormoran and Robin is definitely got a lot of people on tenterhooks. People do want to know what's going to happen, especially after a certain revelation that Strike makes at the very end of the book, which left a lot of Strike and Robin fans with their jaws on the floor and eagerly anticipating the next instalment. But I am very excited to check out the rest of the books in this series. I'm actually quite sad that it's coming to the end, but I am really excited for the next instalment and seeing what J.K. Rowling tackles next, because where can you go from here? It's just one of those instances. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Excuse me. It's a 5-star book all round. It's an amazing instalment in the series. And of course, this is a library rental, so this has to go back tomorrow. So I had to get the book, the physical book, in the review somehow, because the last time I checked out a book from the library, it was Lethal White, and that was actually a book that I had in my possession, but I didn't actually have enough time to film the thumbnail or take a picture of the thumbnail, so it was just me sort of looking at the camera or something like that. And yeah, so I'm really glad that I got the chance to keep this book so that I can have the physical copy and also use something for the thumbnail. But yeah, that's my review of The Running Grave. What did you think of this book? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I hope you like this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to suggest a book review or a film review or anything else at all, please let me know in the comments. And I hope you're all having a very good day. This has been Josh with Whimsical and Interesting Musings. Hope you're doing very well. Take care. Bye-bye for now.